welcome to True Print for Life podcast. We're so excited today to be here. This is your co-host, Maylin Sambois.
And I'm your host, Christina Vera. Welcome back to another episode of True Print for Life. We're really excited to have our next guest speaker. As you know, we really are excited to bring in women, especially women entrepreneurs, women leaders, women who are just making moves in the world. And today we have a special guest that is joining us, Miss Jessica Bennett, who is a mother of twins, actually. She has 4 kids with twins, an author, she's an educator. There's so many incredible things that you'll get to learn more about Jessica here today. So Jessica, welcome to True Print for Life.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's just such an honor to be able to sit at this table with you two wonderful ladies.
Thank you. Well, we feel the same about you, and we're really excited. Like Maylin, actually. So Jessica is also my sister.
Yes.
Which,
Unfortunately.
Fortunately. If you have siblings, you're always like, yeah, this is my sister. But I say, it's funny is that, my sister is like this major player in the educational realm. Like, she's an educator. She holds like several different degrees. Like, she has a few master's degrees. She's going to be working on a PhD soon, which I don't know if I'm still going to call you Dr. Bennett yet.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
But when we were kids, you know how you always just, whether siblings or cousins or friends, you always kind of knew like what industry that they were going to go into early on. And I always knew that Jessica was going to be an educator.
Did you?
Or a story writer, which was crazy because when we were younger, I used to ask Jessica to read me bedtime. Like, she would come up with stories. And that's how we would go to sleep because we shared a bedroom. So we had these bunk beds. And I remember being in bed and I used to be like, Jessica, can you please tell me a story?
You're like, and here we go again.
And she's like, what story do you want? I was like, can you read me Hansel and Gretel?
That was her favorite.
Was my favorite story. And Jessica always told it so good. So Jessica, I have to say, I knew you were either going to always be an educator or a storyteller. And you're actually both now.
Yes.
So what about, like, what stood out to you? Like, what made you want to be, like, in education?
I think when I came out the womb, I came out with a ruler and a piece of chalk because I think I was just always destined to be a teacher. I found myself as a kid being that one child who lined up all their teddy bears and had school. I made my siblings constantly play school. They were never allowed to be the teacher. It was always me. So I just always found that role where I love to teach. I always loved to have that creativity. And even at age, I think 12, I started my own girls club in the neighborhood and had all the girls come into our house. And I was teaching them how to be a lady. I didn't even know how to be a lady myself, but here I am like putting books on their heads. And I'm like, this is how you walk. And I'm like asking my mom, like, how do you act like a lady that could teach these kids? So I always found myself in these positions where I always was just kind of leading in some way or form. And then reading the stories when we were younger was always one of my favorite things as a kid. I remember when I would read to her or my brother would come in, it'd be dark and I see that door open and I see the light come and I hear Jimmy like creeping in and he's like, can you read me a story? So he'd climb in the bed with us and I'd read the story to all of us. And so that was just one of those things that I just really enjoyed doing. And I still love reading till this day.
Yes, I saw your YouTube where you were reading the book. I said, wow, I love this. I would have loved that. I didn't have that growing up. So I feel like that would be really nice.
I can read to you anytime.
I was hoping that you would invite me in.
Anytime. You come on over.
I can see you like in the Calm app with like reading a night story. They have like those sleep people reading stories. I could definitely see you in there too because you have that voice. I'm like, yes.
Thanks.
So you were cultivating this gift early on.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was preparing myself without even realizing it that I was going to be in this role one day. I think back, I always envisioned myself after high school, going off to college and becoming a teacher. And then my senior year of high school, I found out I was going to have a son and I was going to be a mom. So college was kind of pushed on the back burner. I felt like my dream was pretty much over. I was going to be a mom. I was 18 and not just a mom, but a single mom at that. So I worked in a daycare for a few years and took my son with me. And that was my classroom. And I didn't think that I could ever be in a higher position. But then there was this one particular student I had, and we were working on how to spell her name. And there was this one day, and her name was Mariama, and I remember because she was that first one. And when she finally had figured out and had got it, the excitement on her face, like her face just lit up, and that feeling is just like, oh my God, I gotta feel this for the rest of my life. Like that is just such a beautiful feeling. And so there's gotta be a way I can be a teacher still. There's gotta be a way. And one of my coworkers told me about Columbus State, and they had this amazing program. And I was like, wait a second, my dream is not over. I could still be like this elementary school teacher that I've always envisioned. She was like, you can totally do it. So at the time I didn't have a car. I took the COTA bus. I went straight down to Columbus State the next day, took the day off. And it was true. They had a 2+2 program. I can get my associates at Columbus State and then transfer to Ohio State, get my bachelor's, and I could be a teacher. And so that's what I did. Signed up and I took night classes and worked my way up. Went to Ohio State, got my bachelor's, and now I have 2 masters. I went on and got 2 master's degrees. And so that determination to continue getting that moment was big for me. I held on to that.
That's amazing. So you had a moment, and I think we talk to this to a lot of women that when they have a child, right, for whatever reasons may be, whether you be ready or not, sometimes you're like, your life is over. Like your dreams are over. And you've been dreaming of becoming an educator for so long. And then having a child, you saw it as a whole, your trajectory of your life was changing.
Yeah.
And did you have any support at that time to help you navigate being a mom for the first time? You know, not super young. You were 18, right? So young.
I think it was 50-50. I think my family was as supportive as they could be. But it was all on me. And I appreciate that because I think it made me stronger as a mother and as the person I am today, having to put up most of the effort. There were some scary nights and some sad days. But when you have a child, I think something inside of you just makes you push harder. Like, I don't want my son, I don't want to be a statistic. You know, I want him to see that, oh, my mom did this. So even though it was scary, even though I was exhausted, like it still puts a fire in you to push you to kind of keep going. And it's a blessing and a curse because sometimes I don't know how to turn that fire off, but I think it's got me to where I am today.
And it's interesting because I don't remember which graduation it was. It might have been your associates or your bachelor's. I can't remember. But I remember when Jessica came out on the stage, Malachi was watching her and he was small. So it had to be.
It was my associates.
It was the associates. Because so we were waiting, like we're obviously sitting in the crowd waiting for her to come on stage. And I remember when they said her name and she started to cross the stage. Malachi was like, that's my mom. Like, I don't think he knew what we were doing there. And he was just like just walking, like looking like little kids do, just like, doo-doo-doo-doo. And then it was like Jessica Vera at the time. And then he looks around, he sees her, he's like, that's my mom. And then it hit him. We were there to see his mom graduate. And it was so beautiful because you know, she did it. She got her degree as a single mom and, you know, her son got to see her graduate and then she went on to graduate a few more times. And then eventually, like, the rest of your kids got an opportunity to see you graduate. And it was just such a powerful thing, I think, for all of us, because she was the first in our family at that time to graduate from college because our baby sister, she hadn't graduated yet.
She was still in high school.
So Jessica was the first in our family to actually get a college degree.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a very special moment. I think as soon as I get off the stage, that my first go-to was like, my husband was there and the kids were there, whatever. But I was going for Malachi because he was the reason why I was there. It wasn't because he gave me that motivation and that fire that I needed to complete that degree. And so I just couldn't thank him enough. And so as soon as he seen me, he like jumped in my arms, gave me a big hug. And I cried right there. I was like, this is so beautiful. I did all this for you. You little stinker. Now he's 16 and I can't stand him. But at the time, I'm like, I did this all for you. So if you're listening, Malachi, you better know what I had to go through.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It just gives so much hope. I want the people that are listening that are giving up. Maybe right now you are in that situation, you're giving up on your hope, right? Your dream because you think is not meant for you. But Jessica's a beautiful testament that it can happen. Yeah. And it wasn't easy. I'm sure it wasn't easy.
It was hard. And it took a long time. It did not, even though it said 2+2 program, you do 2 years. It did not take me 2 years. I think it took me 4. But I think of it like this. In 4 years, you're going to, at that time, I was 20. I was going to be 24 either way, right? So I could be 24 with a degree or without a degree. So I was like, I'm just going to put in the effort now. And so when people say, oh, it's going to take forever, it's okay. Because you're going to be that age either way. Like, just, you might as well just push for it and get what you want to get.
What pushed you to get 2 more degrees? 'Cause, I get the first one, Jessica. I'm like, fine, Jessica, you got the first. But then what made you go back, right? And did 2, not
She
1.
got 3.
3.
Right. So-
I'm so
Three
sorry.
degrees.
3.
So I got my bachelor's because in order to be a teacher, you have to have a license, right? But Ohio State has this crazy, or they used to, I think it's changed now, where they only allow so many people to graduate with a teaching license. And so if you didn't get in that program, you applied twice. You didn't get in, you just didn't get a license. I didn't get in. So that means here I am with this bachelor's, but I still couldn't be a teacher. And I'm like, can you throw any more heavy rocks on me? Like, Lord, seriously. And so I obviously wasn't going to give up. I wanted to be a teacher. So if I got a master's degree, it automatically came with that teaching license. I was like, all right, master's degree it is. And so that's what I did. And then I had a change of course. I started to teach elementary. And I had a little experience with special education. And I never thought that I would be a special ed teacher in any way. I always thought 3rd grade, 4th grade, that's me, my rows of students. But then I got to experience special education and, oh man, I fell in love with it. I didn't realize that was what I was supposed to do. And so then I was like, sheesh, so I never really got enough on special education, so I might as well get another master's. And so I got my second master's in special education so that the students that I'm working with now was getting everything that I could possibly give them with the proper knowledge and the right tools. So I went back and got my second master's so that I can be
And
there
where
with
was
them.
the other one?
My first master's is in early childhood education.
Okay.
Early and middle childhood education.
Wonderful. Yes. So you got that like, what was it about special ed that, some people are not, they don't feel confident enough to teach a child or help a child in that conditions, like, right? They may not feel like they can help, but you just tasted it and you're like, this is it. Like, what was it?
I think what I loved about special education was not only working with the students, but working with the families. They're coming at us. I work with, I'm an early intervention specialist, so a lot of the students are 2, 3, and so they're getting these early diagnoses or delays, and the families are coming at us with, like, help.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused. I'm so lost. Mm-hmm. And I'm such like a, come here, come to mama. I mean, I'm like that 60-year-old woman in a 30-year-old body right now. Like, come on, like, let me help you.
Yeah.
And so I love that connection I get to have with the families because I like letting them know that they are not alone. Like, we're going to figure this out together. Mm-hmm. And so I love that. I love all the creativity that you can do with these students and not having to worry about the standardized testing and all that other things. And it's pretty magical when you can work with a child who I can sometimes work with one student all year on just saying one word. And when they finally get it, it's a beautiful thing. So I love that. I love the consistency of it.
And it's a special thing. I feel like special education educators are such special people. Like Adrian. So my son, he went to preschool. Actually, at the preschool, Jessica did one of her intern. Was it like a?
I was getting my master's. So I was interning there.
Interning at a preschool. She was like, she calls me because Adrian was around the age where he was going to start preschool. So she was like, "This is the best school for him. Like, you need to put him in this school." And I'm like, okay. And so I was just hopeful we could get him in. Remember that whole process. And finally, he got accepted. He got in. And, at the time, I was completely oblivious to the fact that Adrian was special, like that he was any kind of delay or anything. Like, as Jessica said, is like, as parents, you are just like, you're just going through the motions sometimes. And especially if you have more than one kid, you recognize certain things in some of the kids and you're like, well, maybe this kid's just different. Like, but it's not anything that is like, necessarily alarming. And he got into this, this preschool program and he started working with all these different specialists there. And I remember they called a parent meeting towards the end of the school year because he was supposed to be completing the preschool program to go to kindergarten. And they were like, we don't think Adrian's ready for kindergarten. Like, he needs another year of preschool. And I was like, impossible. And they were like, well, your son is, exhibiting some high functioning autistic behaviors. And then they started giving me all these terms and all this stuff. And I started to cry, like, in the meeting. I was like, you have to be kidding me. Like, I nothing had prepared me for that conversation. And especially because I have 2 other kids who, like, I never experienced the amount of, like, speech therapy, occupational therapist, like all of these subsidiaries within education, I never even knew existed until my son was diagnosed. And so, learning about all these different people and how amazing you and other educators who work with special needs kids are, because it's a different way of learning. And so I think that, to your point, it's just like, wow, like it's something so special. Like when Adrian figured, like it took Adrian up until Adrian's now in the first grade, second grade. What grade is my son in?
Second.
He's in second grade.
Yes.
Lord
Jessica's
help me.
here. Jessica's
second
here.
grade.
Yes.
But he could not spell his name for anything. So just something like what you're saying, like just being able for him to finally write his name. It was just, and it took like 4 people to teach him.
And that's okay.
But that's just the beauty and the specialty of like you as an educator and other educators who work with special needs kids. It's because parents, especially parents who have never really experienced that, I didn't know what to expect. And thankfully, she was so educated. I was calling her and I'm like, they're saying this. And she was like, go back and ask them for this.
I know your rights, girl.
Yeah,
let me know what they say.
And I'm like, okay, no, we don't want that. We want this. And so if she hadn't had that, like you think about parents who can't advocate or they don't know that they can advocate for their kids. And honestly, until Jessica got into this realm of special education, I knew nothing about special education. And now you've gone on to advocate, and now you're an author. You educate families on special needs and ways to teach and engage young people so that they learn how kids are all different, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. So you started something called Jeremiah's Corner.
Yes.
And can you share with us a little bit about like what is Jeremiah's Corner and Jeremiah and just everything you are building right now?
Yes, I would love to. So Jeremiah is my son. He's a twin. They are my youngest. They just turned 5. And Jeremiah, before he was 2, I think around 20 months, he was diagnosed with autism as well, and he was considered a level 3. And so at the time he was nonverbal. And right now, I mean, he's saying a few words, but you can't have a conversation with him. And a diagnosis comes with a lot. And I think I remember, even though I'm a teacher, even though I have these 2 master's degrees, it means nothing when it comes to your own child. Like literally all that goes out the window. And I'm like every other parent, and I cried in that room when they told me that he was autistic. I didn't cry because I was sad about the diagnosis. I cried because I worried about the struggles he was going to have and about how the people were going to treat him. Like, how is his classmates going to treat him? Is he going to get married? Is he going to have kids? Are people going to be mean to him? And so all those negative things kind of, came to my brain right away. And I think I thought about it for weeks and months, actually. I didn't tell anybody other than my closest family because it was really hard to handle. But God didn't put me in this position in the field that I'm in by accident. I think he knew what was going to happen. I think he put me in the right place at the right time. And so I was able to put my big girl pants on and kind of just run with it. And that's where I kind of created Jeremiah's Corner, because as a parent, I realized there weren't many things and resources for our kiddos. There's not very many books on autism awareness. There's not very many books that include autistic characters. There's not very much equipment or toys. And so this has to change. And so Jeremiah kind of put this entrepreneur bug that I didn't know existed in me. He kind of put it in there, and I just been running with it since then. So I released my first book in May of this year, and I'm working on book number 5. So I've just been knocking them out, and it's pretty exciting to see. It's pretty exciting to see them kind of get out there and having kids read them.
Yeah, I love your books. I have them all. I'm like, tell me the next one. And I love them because I read them with my nieces and nephews. I think they're great. I have a nephew that's high functioning, autism. He's 16 now. And we didn't know. I mean, back in the day, you really didn't know even less than what you know now. And it took him 4 years to say a few words, right? So the doctors used to say it was a bilingual thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's because he's bilingual. I'm like, I don't think that's it, though. I don't really think that's it, So that was a really hard thing for my family, too, because we didn't know. I didn't know anything. That was the first time I think many of them heard those words. But And the same concern was, right, like how his future be. Now he's 16, he's high functioning, he's doing great, and but he's a special kid. He's a very wonderful, loving, special kid. And I think children, like I can only speak for my nephew, they have that extra loving gene. I think there's just like an extra gene that's given to them that is just
Yeah.
extremely loving. I never met a kid that's more loving like that child, right? So for a lot of parents that are experiencing this right now, this is the first. I mean, there's parents probably in this listening to this today that they just heard this news, right? Like you both were in separate times, you heard it, you have education, and it still affected you that
Yeah.
way. Christina has you, but still was a very difficult. I remember the news. What would you tell a parent right now that is like, I just heard this, and they're losing it? Like,
Yeah.
what would you say to them? What can they do?
It's okay. Like it's not the end of the world. It's just a diagnosis, and it's something that you can't handle. You learn. I tell parents to meet the child where they are. I think as parents, we have all these expectations for our kids, and we want them to reach all these milestones, and we look at these charts and like we over obsess with it. That stuff doesn't matter. Like meet your child where they are individually and work on those goals little by little. Don't overwhelm yourself with where they should be 5 years from now or 6 months from now, where they should be tomorrow. Just worry about where you are right now and take it one day at a time, and you'll get there. But it's a lot to take in. It's a lot. Well, like, what does it mean? Just start doing your research and start from the beginning, and just find the people that you can count on, because I think what makes a big difference is having a support system, someone that can hear you out, someone who understands you, and someone who can help you, because it requires help. Like it really is hard to do it on your own. But I struggle with support. I mean, outside of my family, that's pretty much it. You can't put your kid in a typical daycare. You can't, hire anybody. And so getting out in the world is kind of challenging. So if you could find a really good, strong support system, I think that's where you should start at.
As a couple, for those people that have a partner, because some people are experiencing this single-handed, right? Like,
yeah.
so this is an advice. But what about those that are as a couple, maybe where you have more understanding maybe than your husband did about this? How did you help him understand what was happening?
I taught him every little thing, every little way, with his siblings as well. When they would talk, I'd be like, get on his level, like get down. And even his twin sister, she works so well with her brother, better than most adults. Like she just knows. And that's because she's observing her parents. And I teach at any opportunity I feel like is a teaching moment, I incorporate it. And not every moment's going to be a teaching moment. Sometimes my husband's like, look, I just want to give him the chips and walk away. But I try to find that time. Well, wait a minute, wait him out, see if he's going to say a word first, and then give him those chips. And so he's always very open to suggestions. And then sometimes he'll look at me like, what do you want me to do first? And I'll like, try this. And so we're really a great team, but it really requires teamwork. Like you both kind of almost have to be on the same page. Otherwise you're going to stress yourself out. If you feel like you're doing it by yourself, like you have to almost be on the same page.
And that's what Jeremiah's Corner is for, right? Like you are providing parents tools to kind of help them navigate this complicated time in their lives, right? But that is possible. They can do it. You figured it out. You did it.
Yeah, you can
I love that you created that. Thank you for creating that. And the books are amazing. The books have beautiful messages.
So nice.
I love that, and sometimes that's what I think about. Hard times create beautiful moments, because that was I can only imagine, difficult time, but a blessing that has come out of that is that now you get to impact so many lives.
Yeah. I have to give that to my mom, because we're in a stressful situation, she'll like give me two choices. Well, you could be mad about it, or you can use that to like do something good with it. And so I was like, well, I guess you're right. So like all the frustration, all this things that I'm feeling, I'm going to use it in a positive way. And so, how can I do this? And I think the idea of Jeremiah's Corner is like, this world is so big, and Jeremiah doesn't need much. Like to Jeremiah, like this little corner right here is enough. Like give me my cars and give me my space and I'm good. And so that was kind of my idea. It's like, we don't need much, we just need a little something for ourselves, a little space. And so though it's not a big thing, and though it's just a few books, it's a big thing, Yeah. So it's just, I have to give that all to my mom though.
It's a big thing, because I remember when we started the conversation about you writing a book, and it went from like, what am I doing, to like, I have 5 books. I'm like, what? So can you just, briefly even tell us, how did you figure out how to get this book? This wasn't your thing.
Hard. So I I told my husband, he's always told me, like, you should write books. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know where to start or how to write a book. And then I literally remember waking up in the middle of the night and I had this vision and I was like, I just started writing these things down, these ideas, you know. And I'm like, I think I'm going to write a book. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. And so I ordered a book on how to write a book. And I'm like reading it. And then you just kind of learn as you go. Like, okay, I got this story. Great. That's the easy part. Now, how do I make it into a book? And so just doing your research. And I just did it step by step. And the first book was really hard. It took me like 8 months. And now I can knock out a book in like a month and a half. And I'm not like trying to show off like, oh, look at me. I can.
Yeah, look at you, girl.
No,
look at you.
but it's just like because now I know the process and I know how I work. And I got a team behind me. My illustrator is amazing. I have a great editor. And so we're a great team of ladies and we just knock it out. And it's great because I've never even met my editor or my illustrator. They live in different parts of the world. One's from Jamaica, the other one's in Canada, and I'm here in America. And we work great together. We get together via Zoom and we knock out these books in a short amount of time. And so it's pretty cool.
And they're all available on Amazon.
Yes, they all are available on Amazon right now.
Yes. And what are the names of your books? So if our listeners want to.
So This Is Me. Yes, We Can. And let me tell you a little bit about each book. So This Is Me is following Jeremiah and Harmony to school. I've incorporated some sign language within the book, and it just kind of just shows Jeremiah is telling his classmates not to be scared of him because he doesn't communicate and he uses a device, or because he may flap his hands or scream, whereas other kids might say hi. That's okay. That's just the way he communicates. So that This Is Me is who he is. And then Yes, We Can is a book about, I wanted to bring light to diversity and how no matter where you come from or who you are, you could be whatever you want to be. And I wanted to keep it very simple. Yes, we can. And so I wanted to incorporate not just diversity, but inclusion and disabilities and all that good stuff within one book. Jeremiah's Corner, of course, is about Jeremiah and his twin sister Harmony again. And this time is from Harmony's perspective as having a brother on the spectrum. She gave me this idea because sometimes she would want to play with him and he would be off in his own space stimming, or he'll sometimes zone out. And she would get sad, like, oh, he won't play with me. And so I told her, oh, it's okay. He's just imagining he's in some place. And that was okay for her. That was good enough for her. So I was like, oh, I can make a book about this. And so while Jeremiah is off in his space, she's envisioning all these cool experiences that Jeremiah is maybe going to. Maybe he's an astronaut right now, or maybe he's a pirate. And that makes her be okay with the fact that her brother can't play with her at that moment. And then my most recent book is going to come out in March, but it is available now if you want to buy it early, is You Are What the World Needs. And that was inspired to me by you wonderful ladies, Femergy. And it's about women empowerment and those affirmations that females need to hear so that they know that they're beautiful and creative and love. And I think it's not heard enough. And so I wanted to put that in a book. It is very repetitive, but I think sometimes it needs to be. I think saying it one time is not enough. Yeah. So I wanted them to hear that over and over and over again until it was like stuck in their brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it works. I actually have it on if you come to my house, you'll see all the books are displayed on my piano because I think they're just so beautiful. But I had a little girl, she's like my niece, right? Not by blood, but like my niece. And she's literally sitting down on my island, said to me in front of her mother, I just don't have self-confidence. Like, I just don't believe in myself. I'm not pretty enough. And it broke me because we work so hard to install in our girls and every woman, every girl that we work with, that they are enough, that they're beautiful as they are. One, I was proud of her for telling me, but I was broken that I heard it, right? So I will be honest, I was hard. But then like something inside was like, Jessica's book. And I was like, go to the piano, please, and get me the butterfly book, because I call it the butterfly book because it has butterflies outside. And she came, and I can tell you, and I texted you the story because I thought it was so heartwarming. In the beginning, she couldn't read the words, I'm beautiful. She couldn't read the words, I am what the world needs, because she would look at it, she said, I just can't read it. And she's like a super great reader. So this is not that I can read because I don't know how to. And I said, why? She's like, it's just hard. And I said, okay, well, let's try. Just for me, read it. And after the third page, she was giggling, she was saying it, and then she read the whole book. And she's like, "I keep saying the similar thing." I said, "Right. And are you starting to understand this?" She's like, "Yes." So she kept reading. She read the whole thing. And at the end, she was smiling and she said, "Do you know this book was dedicated to Femergy?" I was like, "How did you know?" She's like, "It's right here." I'm like, "Read it to me." So she read it. And to me, it was everything, because I have gotten the books because I love them and I wanted to support you. I didn't know that I was going to use it so fast in my house, and to see it like that work, and I said, "Don't worry, for Christmas, I'm going to get you," because that's my copy though, but I'm going to get you a copy. So I just want to thank you, because
so welcome.
it happened in front of me. And I want every girl to read that, and every woman too, and every child should, and just know that they are worthy, that they are what the world needs, because a lot of times they don't feel like that right now.
It's hard to. I mean, social media makes it so hard. All these filters, and it's hard to believe that.
And I think it's important to, like, the books really can start a conversation with your family. Like, even if you don't have a kiddo or a family member who, might have a disability or might be on the spectrum, like, I think it's our job as just human people to have conversations about treating others with kindness. And so just having the conversation as to, like, even though this is not something we have directly experienced, if you see this, or if you see someone being bullied because of this, like, you need to say something, or you need to do something. And I think it's like teaching compassion can start so early on. And at some point, because we know as babies, like, a baby can get hurt and within a few minutes they're back to doing what they just finished doing. Or, even if a kid gets in trouble and you yell at them, within 5 minutes they're back to hugging you.
They want to hug you.
Hey, like, because they're so quick to forgive and to move on and to love. And then at some point, like, it just seems that something shifts where we kind of like go a different route, or we don't lead with love, we don't lead with compassion, or even trying to understand. And I think right now we're seeing so much of it, especially with what's happening with, like, coronavirus and kids who have had to be home for an extended period of time. Suddenly everybody's just like back together. There's all this anxiety, there's all this tension, and we're not leading with love. And especially for kiddos, who need extra support, or are not, they're not able to quickly just shift gears like that. If we can take the time to educate ourselves, not only as adults, because I have been in places, so my son rocks. That's like his soothing mechanism. And when he was a baby, I asked the doctor about that. I was like, "Hey, he does this rocking thing." And he was like, "Oh, that's normal. Some kids suck their thumbs. Some kids twirl their hair. He'll grow out of that." At no point did my doctor ever say, like, "We probably should test him for something else." It was always like, "Oh, that's normal. That's normal." And so as he continued to get bigger and he was still rocking, his rocks became more forceful. And I remember being in a restaurant with my other sister having breakfast, and he's rocking, and the guy behind me, like, got up and was like, "Excuse me, can you tell your son to stop rocking?" And I told him, I was like, "Unfortunately, like, I can't, like, he like, this is what he does." So the guy, like, made like a big deal about it. He was just like, "Well, it's interrupting our meal." And I said, "Well, seeing how we were here first, you can move to a different table." Like, it became this whole scene.
Oh my God,
Unnecessary. And the ignorance that this man, instead of just being like, "Oh, I understand, like, he really can't help himself. Let me not, put my selfishness at the forefront." He made it a point to be publicly disrespectful to me and my son. And my son's small, so he didn't really understand at the time what this man was saying. And eventually, like, a hostess had to move them. Like, he was that bothered that my son was rocking. But there was no way for me to have stopped Adrian from rocking.
You can't.
And you can't. And I think that's what people don't understand, is just and there's so many different variables or levels to autism. You know, like, we've said high functioning. You've said level 3. So there's just so much education even into understanding, like, all the different behaviors and things that come along with the autism diagnosis.
and it's constantly changing. So like if you get comfortable with like, I think I know a little bit, in like 5 years it's gonna be something else.
Yeah.
Which is why I want to go back to school and get my PhD, and I want to really focus a little bit more on autism, because I'm curious as to, I have a couple questions like, how did I have twins and one came out, you know, typical, and then the other one has autism and none of my other kids had it. So there's like a lot of questions I have, and so I want to get some more information and get some research based behind it.
So you're gonna do research.
I want
Is
to
that
do
what I'm hearing?
research.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So we're gonna
I
need
want
a-
to research.
I need a research
I
grant
want to
for
talk to the right
Jessica.
people.
That's awesome. Thank you. No, I love what you both have said, and Christina, the part of, even though this is not affecting you personally, you still should know about it. Right? I think that's how we're gonna start educating people. Right? Like, 'cause you just have to wait to happen to you. Like, you
Right.
should really, because right now our kids are interacting with every kid. We just had a conversation a few minutes ago with someone, just talking about bullying and things like that. And it's because kids don't understand, and their parents haven't taken the time to understand that there's just differences. We're all unique.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with you if you're different. And I would love to see more of that. So maybe you can have some workshops
Yes.
available coming
Absolutely.
up soon.
That's a good idea.
And I feel like there's so much lack of exposure early on. Like if you go into a typical preschool classroom, and I'm not trying to call out any schools, but a lot of the characters in the books are all the same complexion, or the baby dolls are all kind of the same complexion, and there's not enough diversity put into these rooms. And so that is the time where you're supposed to really be teaching about these things, and they're missing out on all these years of experience. And then they get into the elementary schools and it's like, forget it. Like, you're back books. And so this is why I wanted books now at a preschool level, at a toddler level, because this is when we really start installing this stuff. It's not when they're in 4th grade and Jimmy came in and he's in a wheelchair and now we gotta. No, you start early as possible. 1, 2 years old, like start incorporating that early as possible.
And it's storytelling, right? Because children
Yeah,
love stories.
they
So
do.
your books are stories.
Yes,
Right? They're educational stories, which I think they're amazing.
books are magical. You pull out a book and a 3-year-old or 4-year-old would just sit there so relaxed, eyes super gaze to the book, and then you have their attention. You could teach them anything. And so use that book and that opportunity, and which is why I started books. Like, that is a perfect opportunity that we can learn about anything, anyone. Yeah.
I love that.
You're
yeah.
welcome.
Well, thank you so much
You're so
for
welcome.
being here and just sharing your journey. I think, I mean, you are definitely a storyteller. Like, just even explaining, like, just that whole description you just gave, and I was like, yeah, I'm 36 and I'm already like, what are you gonna read to me? But it's like there at no age or point do you stop learning, or should you stop learning. And I love that you've given an outlet for this world of understanding, this world of embracing our differences and looking at them as unique characteristics, where in society sometimes it comes across as if you don't look like this, or if you don't have this, and then there's something wrong with you. And I think you're very intentional about your books and just what you do professionally, and it's super needed. And we look forward to seeing you continue to prosper in your books and just all the things that you'll do with Jeremiah's Corner, because it's super needed. And Myleen's always, I felt bad. Mylene had all your books. I didn't even have the books yet. And I was like, okay, I'm going to order all the books very soon.
Aww.
But it's just so important to have. And I think it's really, really a great thing of what you're doing. So
I appreciate you ladies, because you inspired me to write some of these books. And Maylene, I don't know if you know, but that book, Yes We Can, that teacher, you were inspired. That character is you.
Yeah. I didn't tell Mylene any of this because I didn't know if it was supposed to be a surprise. So
That's you.
She called me. She was like, did you know this book was dedicated to us? I was like, yes. I did know. She was like, I didn't know that. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't tell her that the teacher was her either. I was like, I'll let Jessica tell her, because I didn't want to be like the one. But yeah, you're the teacher in the book, in the butterflies. And
As
all
a little
that.
girl, I always wanted to be a teacher too.
Well, there you
Jessica.
go. You're a teacher now.
I used to teach in my neighborhood too. Like, all of you sit down. We're learning the I, A, O, U, I. And they're like, what? Literally. So if I had not been this, I would have been a teacher.
I love to add characters of people that I know that are inspiring. I mean, it's great to look up to the people in the TV and the music industry, but it's the people next door to you that are really inspiring, like you lovely ladies. Some of the characters are former students of mine who are have various disabilities that I like to incorporate with their parents' permission, of course. And so I like to just incorporate as much as I can from the people that I meet all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're
And
so
as
welcome.
we're closing, thank you again for being here and just sharing your journey and your passion. And we always like to just ask, it's just kind of in reflection, like with everything you've learned and just everything that you've acquired up until this point in your life, like what bit of advice would you have given like younger Jessica, like 12-year-old Jessica or 13-year-old Jessica, or just a pivotal time where you felt like, man, if I knew what I knew, what you know now back then, like what would that advice be?
There's always a way. I think people are quick to say your life is over, or you can't do that, or do you know where you come from, or that's not true. I think there's always a way, and you just have to push through it. I mean, and find time for yourself each day. I mean, we get so wrapped up on the day by day that we lose sight of who we are and what we want to do in this world. And I think it's important that you create some time of your day to envision who you want to be and reflect on where you were. I think that just keeps you going, keeps you motivated.
Yeah, I'm sure your younger self is really proud of you.
I hope so.
Just like we are of you right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. This was
thank you for having me.
We'll have more conversations either on the podcast or outside the podcast about how to support families with everything. Okay. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for finding a way.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me here today.
Yes, and because for us, as we always say, this is not just about us. It's bigger than you. Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.